in 2016. That would be the Panthers, the Cardinals, the Vikings, the Bengals, and the Jets. So what went wrong with these teams? Let's start with Carolina. They lost Josh Norman, obviously. Cam Newton losing his MVP form was their ultimate downfall. He posted the league's worst completion percentage. That's not good. Both teams from the 2015 NFC title game slipped. Carson Palmer wasn't the same last year for Arizona, and offensive line injuries played a big part in that. He was sacked 40 times, fifth most in the NFL. Vikings were a total mess. Teddy Bridgewater, Adrian Peterson, alongside with injuries on the offensive line. They used 12 different O-linemen, the most in the NFL, and the league's worst run game. Then there was Cincinnati, who had been somewhat of a stabling factor or stability when it comes to the postseason. They lost a lot of firepower, including Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu in free agency, Tyler Eifert, and Adriel Jeremiah Green both missed time due to injury. And you could go in several directions with the Jets. We focused on quarterback. They had 3 different starters, and they combined to lead the NFL with 25 interceptions. So, being the month of May, as Teddy Bruschi astutely pointed out, how can these teams return to form in 2017? How can they get back to what they were in 2015, in 2017? What do they need to do? And let's start with the Carolina Panthers. What must they do?
I think Cam has to change. The Carolina Panthers need to rely on Cam more as a passer. That's what he needs to do. He can be Superman, but just not Superman on every single play. He needs to learn to check down to new players, especially McCaffrey. I think they didn't draft a first-round offensive lineman for Cam to protect him, but this was the same thing in drafting a Christian McCaffrey, because now Cam knows he's banged up. He's had surgery. He wants to last the entire season. So now, instead of being that hero that stands right there in that pocket and waiting for Benjamin, waiting for Olsen like he does, and pat that ball and just trust them because they're so big, just checking it down to McCaffrey and other players where they can get a 3rd and 5, rather than the usual check down that Cam usually uses, which is his legs. Yeah. He usually takes off. If it's not there, he'll start running, but that's when he takes the hits. Use the checkdowns, become more of a passer, utilizing short to intermediate throws.
And that's where McCaffrey will really help. Not only had the league worst completion percentage, he was the only qualified quarterback that had a completion percentage of under 50% on 3rd down. So that's where McCaffrey really could help him. All right, Bill, let's talk about the Cardinals. To be a winning team again, Steve Keim and Bruce Arians have to do what in 2017?
They got to do 2 important things above all. The first is more efficiency in the passing game. Cut down the interceptions. Increase the completions. Be sure you hit the ball underneath. And most important of all, cut down the sacks. Carson Palmer gets knocked down far too often. And the efficiency not only is on the quarterback, it's on the offensive line as well. Keep the quarterback upright. If you keep him upright, then he can check the ball down, as Teddy just said with Cam Newton, and make some money in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 situations and keep the chains moving. That didn't happen last year. Yeah. So if they're going to win, they've got to be efficient in the passing game, both in avoiding interceptions and keeping Carson Palmer upright.
And Carson Palmer just turned 37, and the backup in Arizona now, Drew Stanton, I believe, is still there, as well as Blaine
Correct.
Gabbert. All right, let's move on to Minnesota, Teddy. For them to get back to the team that won the division 2 years ago, they got to do what?
It's going to be a broken record over and over. I know it's May, but it's going to be June, July, August. It's about the offensive line. Not only protecting Sam Bradford, but also the run game, starting with that. But Bradford, listen, he's taken a lot of shots. He's a tough kid. I'll give him that, very accurate passer, but even the toughest of quarterbacks, they keep getting hit. They know the offensive line isn't protecting them, Trey. They still feel it. And that 9-yard drop back that you hit that back foot, it turns to 10. You start drifting to 11 and 12, and it just makes it easier for those edge rushers, because I saw times last year where I thought Bradford didn't trust the offensive line, where they were going to hold up for him, and he looked fearful of his life out there. Yeah. So that's what they need to prove, not only to us, but to Sam, that they're there to protect him and they can do the job so he can be the good quarterback that he is.
And you couldn't blame him for being fearful.
No, that's understandable. It was a jailbreak a lot of times. But they got to get the running game going, which would alleviate some of that pressure. Only 3.2 yards per carry last year, dead last in the NFL. We move on to Cincinnati. For the Bengals to get back into the postseason, Bill, what do they got to do?
Well, here we are. Establish the running game. Now, they add Joe Mixon. They get Giovanni Bernard back healthy after an injury-plagued season, and they have Hill still there. spread the runs out, get the carries going, get the running game going. That's going to make Andy Dalton a much better quarterback. And most importantly, in the passing game, get Tyler Eifert healthy and back involved. He wasn't healthy last year, neither was Giovanni Bernard. That spelled disaster for their offense, putting more pressure on the defense. Eifert is the guy. He's the go-to guy. He's the one that makes the big plays. They've added John Ross, and Tyler Boyd is coming off a rookie season, so they've got some receivers now who can do some things. They lost two, Sanu and Jones, to free agency, but Eifert is the key. He makes big plays down the field exactly as the Panthers do with their guy, with their tight end. If he's healthy and they get the run back going, they're going to be a good football team.
You know, for all the failures they've had in the postseason prior to last season, they had made it to the playoffs 5 straight years, which is very difficult to do if you're not the New England Patriots. Every other team it's a problem for, except for the New England Patriots. Speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, your New York Jets. They were really close to getting into the postseason in 2015. Put it in reverse last year. How do they turn it around?
You want me to be a miracle worker here? All right, wait till next.
Hey!
Okay, listen, maybe you can help me out here, Bill, too. They do need a quarterback. Now, they're going to struggle this year. I think the Jets fans should look at where they are in September, and then as long as you see improvement, along November, after Thanksgiving, December, I think you should be happy with that, because where they are, the quarterback position they have, they're going to struggle, and maybe like McShay and Kuiper are talking about, one of those 3 quarterbacks they can get position to get to, and then maybe they make a run with that. But right now, this is a team that's struggling, especially in a division where the Patriots possibly win it again. Switching divisions also, maybe.
Well, that was their other one. Maybe like try a different division. That might have been something.
Compared to this team that has a settled lineup when they're healthy, this team has an unsettled lineup. We won't know what they are until we see what the lineup really is in September and October.
And look, their draft pick of Jamal Adams, safety out of LSU, was great. He's going to be a great player for them. But their next pick was also a safety, which I thought was a little curious, that they would double down on safety after getting what a lot of people thought was the surest player in that first round, Jamal Adams.